We're live.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. This is preparing. There we go. All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry for the little 2-week delay there. You know, COVID just ruining stuff as usual. So we are back with another episode of Positively Family Law. And obviously, as you can tell, we have a special guest with us today.
We have my grandson. I'm visiting him in Seattle, Washington right now. So he is making a little cameo appearance here.
Getting started early on law. So
Yep. He's going to be a lawyer someday.
Perfect. Okay, so today we are talking about marital agreements. So the two big ones that you see in relation to obviously marriage and divorce would be a post-nuptial agreement and a prenuptial agreement, which I said those backwards, but you get the gist. So Heather, why don't you give us a little preview or a little explanation briefly of what is the difference between those two?
Sure. So a prenup, nuptial is obviously marriage. A prenup happens before you get married, whereas a postnup can take place after you get married. So a lot of people have the assumption that if they don't enter into an agreement prior to the marriage, then, you know, they can't do anything. However, if after you're married, let's say there's an inheritance that comes in, or you had something that you're selling and you want to figure out what to do with it, you can enter into a post-nuptial agreement, which would be the exact same as a prenup, only it happens after the date of marriage. So that's the only difference between the two. Everything else is very similar.
Okay, so what exactly is covered in both of those types of agreements?
It depends on what the couple wants. You know, it depends on what their estate consists of and what they basically want to narrow the focus on in order to put into the contract. So it can be anything from if you have a business coming into the marriage, or you have property coming in, if you have retirement accounts, if you know, if there's trust out there, if you know, again, you have an inheritance coming, you can put that in. Some people get into things such as behavior, whether or not that's upheld within a court. I don't know. Sometimes, people want it in that a no cheating clause could get X amount of dollars if somebody cheats. But then there's also the big question of alimony, and whether there's an alimony waiver, whether there's a provision for alimony with the understanding of somebody has a lot more money than the other person walking into the marriage. So it can be as broad or as narrow. It could focus just on one specific thing, or it could focus on a lot of different things. So,
I know you mentioned, businesses, assets, inheritance, stuff like that. Is it strictly money related, or can you include anything in a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement?
It's mostly money related. You hear about the ones in Hollywood where they say that you can only do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't do that, then you have to pay X, Y, or Z. It can encompass behavior, but typically you're looking at protecting financial accounts that you're bringing into the marriage. The thing that it cannot cover is child support or anything related to children, because of the fact that the court is the only thing that has the jurisdiction over those children. And if you try to put anything into a prenup, it would just be invalid in relation to kids, future or present.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's go over some pros to prenuptial or postnuptial. You've already detailed a bunch as far as protecting that business that you have or that you want to open.
Hold on a second. Sorry, Kayla. Yeah, I'm gonna give him away. That's the best part about being a grandparent. He's gotta go get a diaper change. Okay, anyway, back to prenups.
See, we're very real here at this firm. It's real life. So you did detail some pros already as far as protecting that business that you have or that you want to open. You have an inheritance that you would have gotten before you got married or without the significant other anyway, so you feel that it belongs to you. stuff like that. What other pros are there in regards to, having that type of marital agreement?
The pros, I mean, are if you're coming into a marriage, and nobody gets married thinking this isn't going to work out. So I think that's where a lot of people hesitate to do a prenup, because they think that, kind of the saying, as soon as you get a tattoo of somebody's name on your body, like the relationship is doomed. I think a lot of people have this idea that you're basically saying, hey, I'm marrying you, but I don't think it's actually going to work out. So that's not necessarily the case. Unfortunately, we do live in a society, in a world where half of the marriages do end in divorce, but it also can help protect in the event of, an early death. And it's very, very relevant, especially now where second marriages, third marriages are so prevalent, because a lot of people have kids from prior relationships that they want to make sure that they're protecting. So, once you get married, in our state anyway, that spouse, if you die, unless you have a will stating otherwise, gets everything. And so if you die and you have kids and you don't have a will leaving things to the children, and you don't have a prenup, your kids are a little screwed, and that stinks, and they might end up in probate court trying to fight things out. But a prenup can help protect your children. On the other hand, we've seen situations where people come in and they've built, huge businesses, multi-millions of dollars, and they get married and they're together for, one case I'm thinking of particularly, almost 10 years. The wife didn't work, she didn't contribute, but she left the marriage with millions of dollars because they didn't get a prenup. So, it's the pros are you're protecting yourself, you're having communication early about, what is yours, what is mine, what is ours. And I think the general thought of marriage used to be, what's yours is mine, or I guess that's isn't that like the typical wife thing? What's yours is mine, what mine is mine. I think I remember saying that. Maybe that's why my first marriage didn't work out. but I think typically you think you get married and, everything is ours.
Yeah.
But is that good in theory? Yeah. Is it good in practice? Probably not. A prenup is to help protect what you have coming in, so that if you leave or if you die, you still have the ability to pass that on to your kids, and your estate isn't diminished.
Yeah. And I think there's also, like you mentioned at the beginning, as far as like, people think that if you do this before you get married, you're saying, okay, the marriage is going to end and I want to get what's mine. But that's a really big, negative connotation as far as prenups, and that they're not as bad as everybody says. And just because you get one doesn't mean you're like, I've heard the saying of, oh yeah, he doesn't want, example, like, oh yeah, he doesn't want her to have any money, or, they just do their own thing. So they're not like sharing anything. It's a bad marriage. That's not necessarily the case, because there are so many factors, and it can be such a helpful tool in any marriage, even the ones that are, successful and married for 80 years. It's still.
Yeah, and I mean, it really is a communication tool. It's, this is what I have coming in. And it's also good because you have to tell the other person what you have. And I think so many people before they get married don't have those conversations, because they either, one, don't want to look like they're digging to see what the spouse has or doesn't have, or two, they might be embarrassed about, maybe they have a horrible credit record, and their credit score is like 450 or something like that, and they don't want the other person to know. So they don't want to bring it up because they don't want that person to know how horrible things are credit wise for them. But the communication that happens, you lay everything on the table, and that's what a relationship is about. It's not about hiding things. It's not about, sneakily trying to not disclose things. A marriage is about communication and openness and transparency. And that's what it does at the very beginning, is allows both parties to know, what are we getting into? What do you have? What don't you have? If I'm walking into a marriage and the other person has $100,000 worth of debt, I want to know about that, because it's not fair if I don't. And so that's really what it does. And I forget where I had started on that whole tangent. The baby just came back in and threw me all off.
Having that type of conversation with your spouse either before or, after, to get that type of prenup or, that kind of agreement. Now, what are some cons to getting a prenuptial or a postnuptial agreement? There has to be some.
I think the biggest con is fighting, is feeling if one person feels as though the other person is looking for a way out of the marriage before it even starts. I think that's a con. I think it's more the misconception of what a prenup is and the feelings of, if you want a prenup, you must not actually believe that we're going to be together forever. But it's the same thing when you get health insurance or you get life insurance or you get car insurance. You do those things because the chances are that you get into an accident or you die or you have something wrong with your health and you have to go to the doctor and you don't want to pay out of pocket. That's what a prenup is. It's kind of like your worst case scenario. If that worst thing happens, this is how we're planning for things to be divided.
Okay, perfect. So now let's say we have some viewers out there who have, wanted to get a prenup or a postnuptial, but aren't sure how to bring it up. What advice can you give as far as, maybe a quick tips and tricks on how to start that conversation with your significant other if this is what you want? Well,
I think, hopefully people can start talking about it before they even hit the engaged part. Before you even are putting a ring on or taking a ring or saying yes, those are the conversations you should be having. So there should be an expectancy that, hey, most people talk about, do we want to get married? If you want a prenup, that is the time to really talk about it, because that's going to be the time you don't fight about it. So if you do it in the right timing, it's much easier to say, yeah, I want to get married. However, I have this house that I got from my first marriage, or I built up a business that I want to make sure is protected. So if we did get married, I would be looking for a prenup. What are your thoughts on that? And then you have that conversation before there's any commitment or engagement or anything like that. The problem comes more when people don't have those conversations ahead of time, and then they get engaged, they have a big party, they announce it, and then somebody says, oh, by the way, number one, it's not really fair. So it's not the best way to do it. I think it's how most people do it, because they don't even think about it until they start thinking of the ins and outs of the actual wedding. But ideally it happens before. And I think the conversation can be a lot more fluid prior to the engagement. The problem is most people don't do it that way.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate, but just keep in mind that the sooner you have those conversations, and it goes in the same, like you said, as far as, like, how many kids do you want? Or, like, what's your 10-year plan? Like, that should be part of that conversation.
You have an STD that I need to know about. What? It's a question. My daughter's over here staring at me.
It's all necessary information. So, just add prenuptial agreement to that checklist and you should be fine. So, anything else that you want to talk about as far as marital agreements before we, kind of wrap this up? And I'll talk about the other new feature that we are now starting to add to our firm.
Yeah, I think there's certain requirements that need to be in it. It was actually a discussion I was having with a couple other attorneys previously. Is a prenup and a postnup are both things that are, if they're not done right, you might as well not do them at all. So they can be fairly intricate. They can be fairly long, depending on how much, if you have one piece of property that we're talking about, that's going to be much more focused than if you've already built up this entire estate that involves a lot of different assets. But if it's not done right, it's probably not going to hold water. So just make sure, if you're looking for somebody to do it, if they hand you a 2-page paper, you just kind of blew your money.
Yeah, because it is a legal contract essentially between you and the other party. Yep. So just keep that in mind, that it should be done correctly, just with any other legal contract. Just like when you buy a car, when you buy a house, it has to be done right. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble.
And I mean, we've had people come in and they have like things written on napkins from like when they got engaged, and they're like, oh, but this is what we agreed to. It's like, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Verbal agreements also don't cut it. I've had people be like, oh, they told me. No, it doesn't matter either.
Need the proof, need the signature, need everything.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, so you mentioned earlier, as far as the marriage agreement kind of if you don't have a will, this can kind of act somewhat of where things should be directed to. Something that we are now doing pretty regularly at the firm is we now draft wills, and we do estate planning as well. We have a great attorney, Caitlin Fletcher. She can handle, we can do the will drafting, which will cover the will itself, as well as a power of attorney and healthcare proxy. So we do offer that, and then we can offer fuller estate planning too. So if you are looking for that, married couples, if you need a will drafted, we can handle that for you too. So call our office, and we can get something scheduled with her. And then if you need a post-nuptial or prenuptial agreement, we are very good at handling those too. We will do them right. I can tell you that. So call our office today. We can do that for you as well. And if you have any questions about that, please comment, send us a video. Not send us a video, send us a message. Or if you want to send us a video, you can, but
we'll watch it maybe. Unless you think it's spam, then I don't click.
Yes,
Don't click that link.
Yeah. More information as far as like finances and assets and stuff like that on our YouTube channel. I'll link it below as well. So if there's a lot of quick, easy videos to watch. Nothing like a half hour, just quick, like 1 to 2 minutes. Should get you a lot of information too, and we'll be posting there a lot more regularly as well.
Yeah. And I think one of the things Kayla and I have spoken about recently is kind of doing these, but very focused. So they're only 1 to 2 minutes, rather than making you sit here and listen to me talk for a half hour.
And we're here every Friday,
yeah, almost every Friday.
Barring COVID restrictions.
Yeah, stupid COVID. All right. Well, thank you for watching. And Kayla, thank you again. And let us know if anybody has questions.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week. And we'll announce on the Facebook page what topic, because me and Heather are going to talk about that after this. So.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.